Yeah, a very evening to everyone. My name is Hemanth, and today I'm going to discuss about the conditional statements and the control statements. So let's get into this. Okay, fine. Conditional statements. Okay, everyone. Hope you all know about these things, right? If you don't know, almost second year, third year students know about these things. Okay, let me tell you this briefly today. So the conditional statements are again categorized into three parts. The first one is conditional statements. Conditional statements. And the second one is loop statements. Hope you all know about this loop statement. Loop statements. And this third one is something like control statements. So today we are going to discuss about these three topics. These three topics plays a very major role in Python because if you want to solve any program in Python, you have to use these conditional statements, looping statements, and control statements. Today I will explain these three things very clearly. Okay, let's get into what actually the control statements are. And let us discuss what actually the condition statements. So let us go into the first thing, conditional statements. So in Python, for example, let us consider a real world example. You guys are here and you are having one apple here and one stone here. And now you have to decide whether you want to, if it is an apple, then you will eat this apple. If it is a stone, you will throw this stone because you won't eat stones, right? So now you have to take decision based on what you get. So if you get this apple, you will eat. Otherwise, if you get this stone, you will throw that stone. Okay. Now, when coming to programming, this is the same thing what happens in the programming. So let us consider another example. So when come to programming, let us consider a number 3. This is positive number, right? This is a positive number. You have to decide whether it is a positive number or negative number. Let us take another one, 0. Have to decide whether it is a 0 or any other number. Let us take -4. Have to decide whether it is a negative or any other number. Okay. In programming terminology, we are using one statement called if statement. If statement. So if you see here, you are taking a decision. If it is an apple, you are eating. If it is a stone, you are throwing. So in such a way, you will use this if statement. Let me explain how this if statement is going to help you to use a condition. So let us take an example. Okay, you want to uh, make sure a number is positive or negative. So you're trying to make a number. If it is a positive, then you will print positive. If it is a negative, you will print negative. You have to find that. Okay, initially I will give you with a number. Let us consider F4. You know that it is a positive number, but the programs doesn't know if it is a positive or negative. So we will teach that program to classify whether it is a positive number or negative number. Okay, let me tell you the syntax of if statement. Okay, before going to that, let me do some of the things about the conditional statements. So in Python, we are having three statements. Three statements. Though, so the first one is if statements. So this is nothing but taking a single decision. This is nothing but taking a single decision. So the next one is if else statement. If else statements. This is nothing but if your condition is wrong, then we will move on with the another condition. That means else condition. So we are basically checking two conditions here, two decisions here. So here we are taking one decision. Here we are checking two decisions. If you want to check more decisions, then you will use nested if else statements. Nested if else statements. So here, if you want to make more than two decisions, then you will use this nested if conditions. And in Python, there another one called elif. Elif. This statement is also used to check more than two decisions. So later I will tell you the difference between this nested if and elif. Now let me tell you this thing of one decision statement, that is if statement. So now the if statement, we are using a if statement, right? For the if statement, there is a syntax in Python. So what is the syntax? So we will use if. Here in this bracket, we will place one condition. We'll place one condition here. So why the condition is like let me tell you this later. So if the condition become, here we are two cases, right? Here we will place a boolean. Here we will place a boolean that is used to check whether the condition is true or false. That means this will categorize into two things, true and false. So this if statement, it is the first statement, right? It is the first statement. So when the condition is true, when the condition is true, then only it will execute these statements. That means with an indentation, we will use some statements here. Statement 1 and statement 2 and statement 3. If this condition become true, only when this condition become true, then only we going to execute these statements, these three statements. If there are some other statements also, that statements will also will get executed up to n statements. When how many statements it will get executed means the statements which are in this block, if condition block, we are having an indentation, right? In Python we will use indentation for whatever the things. That means we want to classify some of the things in a byte. So for that purpose, you make an indentation here. Here indentation is there, right? So the things which are in the if block, all the statements will get executed and the condition become true. Okay, let us take an example here. You want to tell, you going to tell whether this number is positive or not. Okay. So now what you will check? You will check whether. So what you are going to check? This number, right? So this number is a variable. This number is a variable and it is a number. So the name, the variable is assigned with 4. So I'm using that variable number. If number is greater than 0, if the number is greater than 0, then we are printing. Then we are printing as positive number. We are printing as positive number. Okay. That means here check. whether 4 is greater than 0. Yeah, 4 is greater than 0, so are printing positive. The output will be positive. What if we give? What if we give the number as -4? So, if the number is 4, let us check the condition. -4 greater than 0. Is the condition is true or false? So, the condition is not true. It is obviously false. So, you will not execute this statement. Okay. So, nothing will be get executed. Whatever the things after the print statements is out of the if block, the statements will get executed. That means if here we have anything like end of if statement. If this condition is false, then it will print at the end of the if statement. Okay. So in this way, the simple if condition will get executed. Here we are taking only one condition, right? If this number is greater than 0, then only we are printing positive. But you guys need that if that number is greater than 0, it is positive. And what is the other case? If the number is greater than 0, it is positive. What is the other case? If the number is less than or equals to 0, that is the other case, right? So then you can say that whether that means either it is 0 or negative. This is the case, right? Either it is 0 or negative. So you need to check these conditions at a time. For writing these conditions, you can able to check whether it is a 0 or not. So for the second part, we are going to learn the if else statements. So this if else statements is going to use the two conditions. That means we are going to take the two decisions here. Okay. Let me tell you how that going to work. Here we're taking in before we are using this syntax, right? The syntax is like if and the condition here. So this condition is true, then it will print these statements. Okay, these statements here. This is what we have used before. But you want to check the false condition also. In before you have considered only this true condition. So you are going to check false condition also. Then you will use this else statement. So this else statement is basically used to check. That means whatever the condition is false, then the statements which are in the else block will get executed. Assume it is one statement. Assume it is statement. If the condition become true, it will execute statement 1. If the condition is false, then it will execute statement 2. So in this way, that is going to be work. Okay. So now move on to the next example. Let me take a small example. Before what you have checked, I will give you a number like 5. You will check whether it is a positive. You will doesn't care about if it is not positive. You don't print any 0 or negative. Now we are going to take care of that condition also. I will explain you clearly. Now you are given with a number. That number is -4. So you need to check whether whether that number is positive or negative or 0. So we are checking these two conditions, right? Okay. What you will do? What you will do means simply you will write the if condition. In that if condition, you will check whether this number, it is a variable, right? It is storing -4. Whether this number is greater than 0. So if it is greater than 0, then you are going to print it is a positive number. It is a positive number. So if the number is not a positive number, that means if it is not greater than 0, what is the other case? What is the false condition? Just think about that one. If the number is not a positive number, it is not a positive number. That means what are the other cases we are having? That we are having only two conditions, 0 and a negative. So you can simply say that if it is not greater than 0, the number definitely is a 0 or a negative number. So you need not to check the condition all the time. Simply you will write, simply you're going to write the else block. Else here, what you will write? Print it is 0 or a negative number. It is a 0 or negative number. And next. So here we are consider the two conditions, right? We have chicken that it is true. When the condition is true, we will print these statements. If the condition is false, we will print these statements. Now let us move on to the another level of the conditional statements. So the another level of conditional statements is else if, else if. In C++, we will tell it as else if. But in Python, no need to mention these two letters. We can define that as elif. Okay. Okay. Next. So why we use this elif? So in before the simple if statement is used to check one condition, and this else if statement is going to use for two conditions. This else if statement is going to use is gonna be used when we are having more than two statements. That means two conditions. When we are having more than two conditions, then we are going to use these else if statements. Okay. Let me explain this clearly with an example. Before that, let me give you the small syntax about this thing, else if statements. So the syntax, the syntax of elif. What is that? So simply, initially we were starting with a condition. Assume this is as condition one. Assume this is as condition one. If the condition become true, then we are going to print the statements. Else. So in before we are going to check in two conditions, but here we're going to check more than two conditions. Then what we will write here? It's not working. Okay. Here we are going to write L if, and we are consider this as condition 2. So if the condition 1 become false, then it is going to check this condition 2. So if condition 2 is true, then it will print statement 2 here. The statements which are in this elif box, that means the statements which belong to this elif, the statements will get printed. That means that statements will get executed. Next, if you want to check the another condition, that means how it will work means here we are checking the condition 1. If the condition is true, it will print this thing. Okay. If here we are checking the condition 2. If the condition 2 is true, then it will print statement 2. If the condition 3 is true, that means if it is false, we are moving on to the second condition. If condition 2 is found, we are going to the third condition. If condition 3 is true, we are going to print these statements. So this condition 3 statements. So in such a way, you're going to make as many as conditions you want. As if condition n. Here we make it statement n. So if the condition n is true, then it will print statement n. Okay, fine. Now, if all the statements are false, that means all the conditions are false, then it will gonna print that will gonna execute this else statements of else block. So now let me explain this clearly. If the condition 1 is true, then it will execute this condition statement 1. If it is false, then we will move on to the second condition. If it is true, then it will execute this. But if it is false, then we are move on. If the condition 3 is true, then we are move on to the executing this third statements. So in such a way, we will check all the conditions. That means up to condition n, we will check. But if the condition n is also false, then it will execute these statements which are available in the else if block. Okay, this is how the actual else if statements will work. Let me explain this with an example. Okay, the example is like given with a number. In before, I'm said that the simple if block statement, if it is a for, you will simply say by using if simple if statement, you will check whether it is a positive or negative. Or that means only positive. The simple if statement, we are checking whether the given number is positive. If it is not positive, it doesn't care about the else statements. Next, what we have checked, if a given number is something like, assume it is a -4. Here, for this if else statements, we have checked whether the number is positive or 0 or negative. We are checking these two conditions, right? Two conditions. So by using these if else statements, and next, if the number is 0, if the number is 0, what you will do? You need to check whether the given number is positive or it is 0 or it is negative. You need to check these three conditions. In this, you are going to use this elif statements. So let me write the program here. So what we will do? Initially, we will make a condition. So if num is greater than 0, if num is greater than 0, you definitely say it is a positive number. So print it is a positive number. If the num is less than 0, what you will do? So if it is greater than 0, you can say definitely it is a positive number. If it is less than 0, you will say definitely it is a negative number. So, and next, what is the last case? Sorry, here typo mistake. Elif. So what you will do here? Okay. Another case is like you need to check whether it is a 0. If the number is greater than 0, it is positive. If the number is less than 0, it is negative. What is the rest? That means leftover condition. What is the leftover condition? That is only 0. So you can say that if it is not positive, if it is not negative, then it will definitely a 0 element. So this is how the else if statements will going to work. It will check whether the number is a positive number. If it is a positive, then it will print positive. If it is a negative number, it will print negative. If it that means if it both the cases are not true, then it will definitely going to be 0. So we will print 0 here. Next. So next, come to this statements. Nested if. So nested if statements. So when we are going to use these nested statements, you have so many conditions. That means if one condition, let me tell you this using a normal terminology. So you are having a condition. If this condition become true, then only you are going to consider condition 2. And if when only the conditions, okay, just leave it this thing. If the condition 1 is true, then you are going to check condition 2. Or else, that means if it is not true. If it is true means you are going to use the false condition. That means else block, right? Let me draw this like a flow chart. So here it is true, here it is false. If the condition 1 is true, then you will execute the condition 2. That means you are going to check the condition 2. If the condition 1 is false, you are going to check the condition 3. So now, so again, here you are having another condition. Here also we are having two cases, right? One is true and another one is false. Okay. The second, you will check whether the condition 2 is true or false. Based on that, we will execute some of the statements, statement 1 and statement 2. So in such a way, you will see this condition 3 also. If the condition is true, then you will execute all the statements like 3, statements 4. So this is the real world scenario how we are going to work with the nested if statements. Okay, let me tell you the syntax of this thing. So syntax of the nested if statements. We are using the if statement and the condition here. Assume it is a condition 1. If this condition is true, if the condition is become true, then you are going to verify the second condition, that is condition 2. So here, if the condition become false, then execute the else statements. Okay, consider this is as statement 1 and statement 2. And if the condition 1 become false, then you will use the else statement here. So this condition 1 become true, then you are going to execute them. Then you are going to check the condition true. If it is false, means you are going to the else block, and whatever the things which are available in the else block, then you are going to execute that conditions. And condition here statement 3. Assume it is a statement 3. Assume this as statement 4. Okay. This is how the syntax we are going to see in the next if statements. So if the condition 1 is true, then you are going to check the condition 2. And if the condition true, then you are going to execute the statement. If it is false, means you will execute the statement 2. If the condition 1 is false, then you are going to check the condition 3. So here what you have seen means in this if statements, again you are going to check the another if statement. This is why it is called it as nested if. Nested if conditional loops. So conditional statements. Okay. So if you want an example, similarly we will use that example. Same example here. You are given with a number, you will check whether it is a positive, 0 or negative. Sorry, negative, right? Negative. You are come with a first condition. What is the condition here? If number is greater than 0, whatever the two conditions we are have, if it is greater than 0, then you are going to check whether the number is less than 0. If the number is less than 0, so we are having a number, we have checked whether the number is greater than 0. That means that it must be definitely a positive number. That means if we are going to this if block means that definitely it is going to a positive number. So what you need to check? What you need to check next? Whether the number is equals to 0 or not. So here assume this as, let's take this if condition as greater than or equals to 0. So we are checking two conditions here. If number is positive or equals to 0, we are going to this condition and we are checking whether the number is 0. If number is 0, we are printing what? It is a number. Else what we are printing? Else we are printing it is a positive number. So we need to check that whether there is negative number also, right? So this is the block of else. This is the block of else. So here you will print. That means if the number is greater than or equal to, here we are check two conditions, that is positive and 0. So whatever the leftover thing, negative. So we need to print the number here. Mm, Give me okay, fine. So next we are completed. What are the things? If statements and if statement, else if statement, and if sorry if else statement. Sorry, this is if else statement. This is else if statement, and what are the last thing? Nested if statements. So these four things play a major role. These four things plays a very major role in Python. Whatever whatever the problems you are solving in coding, that definitely leads to use these four statements. So in this if statement, we are going to check only one condition. In this else if, we are going to checking two conditions. Here, if you are having more than two conditions, more than two conditions. This is also met for that one only, more than two conditions, but it is different than this thing. Here we are going on whether if the condition one is true, then we are entering to the condition true. In such a way, these two are differentiated. But here we are going to check only one condition. If either the condition become true, then we are going to execute all the statements which are available in that block. Okay, this is all about the conditional statements. Now come to the control loop statements. Loop statements. So this is the most important thing in Python. So these two, if you are solving any problem in the lead code GFC, then it leads to using these while and for looping statements. So in Python, we are having two looping statements. The first one is while loop, and the second one is for loop. So initially we will discuss what actually a while loop is. So give me a minute once. Okay, fine. Now let us discuss about what a while statement. So before that, let me explain what actually loop statements are. You suppose you are doing some routine task in the entire day. So you are keep on doing that routine task. You are keep on doing that routine tasks every day. So you need you are taking you are always need to remember the things you're doing the task again and again for this repetitive task. That means you're doing the same task again and again, right? So you need to remember that thing. So write it somewhere and keep remember that thing and do the same thing. Then you will have habituated with that one. So in such a way, that means if you are having same statements, if you are having statements that you want to execute more than one time, then you are going to use these loop states. So let me tell you one. If you are having same statements, if you are having a block of statements, having the same statements means you need to execute these statements again and again. Then you are going to use these loop statements. So what first looping statement? While loop. While loop. Okay. So the syntax of while loop is very simple. The condition, while condition one. Okay. Let's assume here as condition. Okay, fine. So whenever the condition is true, the statements keep on executing. The statements keep on executing. So if the condition is true, then it will execute the statements. If the condition true, it will execute the statement. If the condition true, it will execute this. So it will keep on execute every time when the condition becomes true. So when it will get stopped, whenever the condition become false, then it will immediately stop this loop. Immediately stop this loop. It won't execute this loop. It will get outside of the control of the program. Will get outside of this, and the things whatever the things after the while loop, they will get executed. So let me explain this with example. You want to print some numbers. Let us assume you are given with a number. You are given with a number 5. What what he asked means you need to print 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, including 0. Okay. So what you will do? That means if you observe these things, you are simply incrementing 1 every time here. 1 every time here. That means what you are going to do is you are repeating the same task. You are repeating the same task. So whatever the first thing that comes into mind is you need to use a loop statement to print numbers. So you will use one loop statement called while loop. While, but what is the condition? So before going to that condition, you have to think of the requirements needed for to solve this program. So what are the requirements we have to need? Initially, you will assign an I with a 0. So this I has to be what up to what number it has to up to what number it has to print up 5, right? So I must be less than or equals to I must be less than or equals to I must be less than or equals to 5. Then what you are going to print? You are going to print the I. You are going to print the I number. Then you are going to increment. So in C++ and Java, we are having simply these conditional statements, I plus plus, I minus minus. But in Python, it won't allow like this. You need to write. If you want to add 1 to a variable, then you have to write in such a way. Or you can able to write I plus equals to 1. This is same as this thing. So here I'm incrementing this one. This is what we have done before, right? We are keep on incrementing every time. So let me try run this thing. Okay. Initially, what is the I number is 0. So we are going to check this condition. 0 is less than 5. So it is true. It is true means then we are going into the while loop. Then we are entering into the while loop. So what is the first statement which is available in the while loop? Print I. So what is the value of I initially? So the value of I is 0, right? So initially we will print 0. So next is the value of I. Next, what is the value of I? It is going to increment by 1, 0 plus 1, and it will want to be assigned to I. Okay. 1 will be assigned to I. Next, the value of I is 1. So 1 less than or equals to 5. Whether is this condition is true? Yeah, this condition is true. So you will enter into this while loop, and what you are going to print, you will execute this statement, right? So what is the value of I? The value of I is 1. So we'll print 1. So next one, what you will do? Again, we will check the condition. We will increment the 1 and we will check the condition. So the I value is 2. You will check 2 less than or equals to 5. So 2 is less than equals to 5. The condition is true. Then you are going to print 2 and again you are going to increment the value of I. So the value I become 3, right? Now the value of I become 3. Okay. Now the value of I become 3. 3 less than or equals to 5. So the condition is true. Then you will execute this print I. The value of I is 3. And next we will increment the Y value. Then it will become 4. Then again, what you will do, you will check the condition whether this 4 is less than or equals to 5. So 4 is less than equals to 5. The condition is true. You will going to execute this print I. It will going to print 4. Next, what you will do, you will increment the I value. Okay. What you will do, you will going to increment the I value. Then it will become 5. The 5 is less than 5. Is the condition is true? Yeah, the condition is true. You're going to print 5 here. Then what you will do? Next, what you will do? You will execute this statement, right? It will going to increment as 6. So what is the value of 6 right now? The value of I equals to 6. Now check 6 less than or equals to 5. Whether the condition is true or false. So it is false. You're going to stop this while loop here. So what is the output? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is what we discussed before, right? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So in this way, the while going to work. So what you did means you are printing the same task. You are doing the same task again and again. So in this case, you are going to use this loop statements. So please remember this thing. If you want to do that thing again and again, then you are going to use this loop statements. Next. So I hope you all understand this while loop, right? I am moving to the next looping statement, that is for loop. So the actual functionality of while loop and for loop is same. So whatever the thing this while loop is doing, the same thing is done by the for loop also. But there is a little change between these two things. The first change is it's a syntax. It's a syntax. Okay. The actual while loop syntax is while here condition, then we're going to print some statements here. This is what the condition is. So this is what the syntax of this while loop. But when coming to for loop, so this for loop initially want a variable. Here you can take any variable here. This is a for loop and initially it needs one variable to store a value. So that value can be taken from any list, any tuple, any set, any dictionary. So we are not going to talk that list tuples dictionary. We will discuss that things in the later classes. But up to now, we will use one function called range. So let me explain how this range is going to be used. This range is actually a function which is built in the Python. So it accepts 3 parameters. Here we are having 3 parameters. Let me tell you the 3 parameters. Range of the first parameter is the starting index, starting or start number. You can say that it is a start. So the next parameter is end, and the third parameter is steps. So you know that start is a starting number and ending number, but some of them don't know about this step size. Let me explain that clearly. So what actually this relation will do is whatever the digits having start to end, that means if start is 0 and is 4, will going to give you 0, 1, 2, 3 as output, as an output. So, but if you want to, how many numbers you have skipped? One number, one number, one number. You have skipped only one number. But if you want to skip more than one number, then you are going to use this step size. If the step size, let me give you one example: 0, 4, and 2. The step size is 2, right? So initially 0 will be printed. What is 0 plus 2? 2 will be printed. What is 2 plus 2? 4, right? So it is after, that means it is beyond the end. It doesn't print it. Only 0, 2 will get printed. This is how the step size will get used when we are using this range function. But we are not discussing about this range function here. But we are using this range function in this for loop. We'll discuss that range function later. Okay. So what is the syntax? We need a variable, and here we will use some range of numbers. Range of numbers. The range of numbers can be your wish. Whatever the range you want to use, that range you will place here. The numbers will be placed here. Then you will print that numbers. So whatever the variables coming here, that will be simply stored in this variable. That means if the range function, what we have given, if the range is between 0 to 4, then initially 0 will be stored on the variable. Then next var will be replaced by 1, and next var will be replaced by 2, var will be replaced by 3. In such a way, the way var variable going to store all the numbers which are given by this range function. So if we print, that means here, so we are discussing about the statement syntax, right? So syntax means whatever the statements, if you want to execute again, that statements you are going to print by using the for loop. Okay, let me explain this thing by using a simple example. In before, what we had done, in before what we had done, we have given with a number, assume like number is like 4. So up to that number, up to 4, we are going to print. We are going to print up to 4 numbers. That means 0, 1, 2, 3. This is what we have done previously by using for loop. Sorry, while loop. Now we are going to print by using a for loop. So the syntax of for loop is, initially we will define with a for and a variable. It is a variable for I in range. For I in range. So up to what number you are going to print? Initially it is 0. So the start number is 0. The end number is 4. And what is the step size? 1. So here you can able to omit these two values. If you omit these two values, that range function will assume that starting from 0, and the step size by default it will take 1. So that if you use only one number, then it will consider this as an end number. Okay. If fine. Now you are going to print the value of I. So you're going to print the value of I here. So what are the values will get printed here? This is not working. It will go and print first. Initially, the I value will store the 0 value. So printing of 0. Next, the I value gonna store 1. Then it will print 1. I value will store 2. Then it will print 2. I value will store 3. It is gonna print 3. So now I value is 4. So it is beyond the end value, right? That means the range function will consider from 0 to n minus 1. From 0 to n minus 1. That means start to n minus 1. It will consider the elements from start to n minus 1. So the elements will get printed. So this is what the difference between the for loop and while loop. Let me tell you some of the major difference between this for loop and while loop. The major difference between for loop and while loop is, here in for loop, we came to know that we are knowing that what is the end point, right? In for loop, we are defining this end point. we are defining this endpoint. But in while loop, if you don't know the endpoint, that means here we are having a limit 0 to 4. We can simply say that up to that four numbers we are going, so up to fourth number we are going to print the digits. But if you don't know the endpoint, if you don't have that endpoint, then you will definitely use this while loop. So soon we will discuss some of the examples to get clear about that point. So now remember these things. If we are having an endpoint, then we will definitely use a for loop. If we don't having any endpoint, then we are going to use the while loop. And again, we are having some control flow statements. So the third category is control flow statements. Here, what we are going to use, what is the purpose of these flow statements? Let me explain that clearly once. So the first control flow statements is break. So this is the popular one. If that means you are running a loop, you are running a loop again. This keep on goes. But if you want the loop at break at a certain point, that means if you want this loop break at this point, then you will use this break statement. Then you will use this break statement. Okay, fine. Next. So how you are going to use this break statement means by using a condition. When that means when you want to use the break statement, that break statement have a specific condition, has to be in a specific condition. Let me explain that clearly. Suppose a for loop is going from 0 to 100, but you want only 50 numbers. You're going to print I, that means it will gonna print 0 to 99 numbers, right? But here you want only 50 numbers. So then what you will do? Here what you will do means simply you will write a condition. So whenever the I becomes 50, so whenever the I becomes 50, then you will break. That means your program control will get out of this for loop. This simply print 0 to 50 numbers. Then it will get stop executing this for loop. So this is the actual purpose of this break statement. So in such a way, we are having another statement. We are having another statement called continue. We are having this continuous statement. Why we are using this continuous statement? Let me explain this thing. Okay. So you are printing 1 to 10 numbers. So you are having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. But in that you don't like some of the numbers, like you don't like 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Or you don't like, or let us take a simple example, you don't like this 5, you don't want to print this 5. So you can able to skip an iteration by using a continuous statement. You can able to skip an iteration by using a continuous statement. For I in range of 0 to, that means you're going to print 10 numbers, so that's why I'm using 10 plus 1. So 10 plus 1 numbers, that means it will gonna print 0 to 10. If the I becomes 5, you will skip that iterations. You will skip this iteration. Continue. Then you will simply print the I value which is available on the variable I. So what it will print is, it initially print 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This is the actual output of this for loop. So what we have done, we have run the for loop from 0 to 10 numbers. Whenever the I becomes, that means the I is storing 5, we are reaching that iteration, we are skipping that iteration, skipping, we are skipping that iteration, and we are going to print that I value. So this is how the actually this is break statement and continue statement is gonna work. If we want to stop the entire for loop, if we want to stop the entire for loop, if you want to stop the entire while loop, any loop statements, then you will going to use these break statements. If we want to skip, if we want to skip a current iteration, then you are going to use this continue statement. This is how the break and continue statements will gonna use in our programming languages. It is not different for all programming languages. These statements, we are having these conditional state for all the things like C, C++, Java, and there are some other languages like JavaScript, some other like R language also. On our language, we are going to use these conditional statements, looping statements, and these control flow statements. So in such a way, these all the things will play a very major role in all programming languages. Okay, what you have learned today, we have learned the if conditions, if statements, and if else statements, and the next is else if statements, nested if statements. This is the conditional statements, and looping statements are while loop, for loop, and in the looping statements we can interrupt the flow of the loop statements by using break and continue. And there is another thing like pass. I will explain this thing later because we are not having a exact example to describe you. If you go through some of the topics, then we will came to know about this thing. Okay. So this is all about today. Thank you for giving our listening this class. Okay. This is all about today. From when I'm going to teach you about like list tuples and all. So thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.